even in that finance space, like the people that I saw really thriving, in particular, the people of color, the Black women that I saw that were really getting the promotions, they were authentically themselves.
Mm,
Like they were sure. I
mm.
was looking at some images from that season. I remember the day, like one Black woman who I call a friend got promoted to be a director. Like she came and she was at the board table and she was in her fuchsia suit with her natural hair, and I loved it. And
Yeah.
it's a picture I still kind of reference.
Welcome to the glorious offices of the Rozy Effect. Isn't it cute? And check out this merch. It's pretty cute. Awesome. Today I'm sitting down with Briana and I'm excited about it. I went to business school with her. Let me tell you a little bit about Briana. She's a proud Chicagoan and a native of the Englewood community. She's deeply passionate about community revitalization and thoughtful mentorship. Now, currently, Brianna works in the youth development space where she has a distinct pleasure of serving as a professional development coach to young people from across the city. Some of her favorite parts of the work include connecting young people with paid internships and providing support around post-high school planning. Prior to working in the youth development space and her move back to Chicago, Brianna lived in Atlanta and worked in investment banking. While pivoting from the finance sector to the nonprofit sector, Brianna was invited to participate in the Adesi Fellowship, a year-long faith-based program for emerging entrepreneurs in 2020. Brianna received her bachelor's degree in business administration from Howard University and her master's in business administration from Cornell University. Now, the reason why I'm excited about this conversation is because as a leader like Brianna, she's really been able to define what her purpose is and has boldly been able to step into it, shifting careers completely against all odds and being able to go on a path where she truly believes she's grounded and is able to live out her purpose to impact lives. And that's what we're all about. So I'm excited to dig deep into learning more about Brianna, her journey, and how that transition went down. You know what? Let's just get into the conversation. Join in. Brianna! Oh my gosh, you're such a boss. And I'm so grateful to get an opportunity to sit down with you here today. Thank you so much for joining the Rozy Effect.
Thanks for having me. Excited for the conversation.
So dope. So we met in business school. And
Yes.
I've always admired your just you're always grounded, you're always doubling down, your hustle is just clean. I just love the way that you move towards what it is you're passionate about. And that's really what drew me to want to speak to you today. So why don't you take me through a bit of your journey from business school and where you are today?
Yeah, for sure. And thank you. Thank you for inviting me to like have this conversation with you. When I saw that you were doing this, first thought was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So
For
it's
me, like
yeah, because I remember us kind of having conversations in school and
yeah, you're
talking
right.
about like your vision. So it's
Yeah.
it's cool to kind of be able to link up with people vision wise. And so, yeah, to just kind of jump into it, definitely on a different pathway than where I was immediately after business school. In business school, I was on the investment banking track, did an internship, and got the offer, and decided to take an offer right after school in 2017 at a middle market bank in Atlanta, and worked in leverage finance. And it was cool. An opportunity that I'm grateful for. It's a very competitive industry, but
Yeah.
also there were so many points throughout that experience where it's just like this is not for me,
Hmm.
and this is
Hmm.
not like ultimately where I'm supposed to be. I'm learning stuff, but I know this is not ultimately where I'm supposed to be.
Mm.
And I started really pressing forward, figuring out like where I should be and
Hmm.
like leaving what wasn't for me around 2019.
Let me ask you something before we go
Yeah, for
into the
sure. Go
transition.
ahead.
So, this is why I wanted to bring you here because I believe that a lot of our millennial sort of emerging leaders, we've got the degrees, we're doubling down, we're hustling, and it's almost a sense of like, I can't live my truth. And I think that's one of the hardest things to do as a young emerging leader, to live your truth, especially when you come from, struggle. I can speak to that and needing to live a certain sort of career and push. But the reality is, are you in alignment with your purpose? So I love that you
Yeah.
said you realized at a moment like this was not for you. What was that moment for you?
Whew. Man, I don't even know if it was just one moment. There were multiple moments. I think like for me, what stands out is just like all the moments where I felt like anxious. I think about all the times where I wanted to be connected to like communities of faith, and like in particular, like having this practice and like rhythm of being in the church, but work was like taking me away from that. Like it was in direct conflict
Mm,
with that. Like things that were true to me just couldn't like coexist with the work and culture and the pace of the work I was doing. So it's like, okay, this is off. Um, Also, just like all the times where I became aware of just how much I was like shape shifting. So like who I was and
character
how we might be having this
wise.
conversation right now. I wasn't able to kind of show up in that way, in that authentic self when I was at work. And like who I was when I was working on this business idea with someone from our business school program was different from how I showed up as an associate in investment banking, and who I was at church and the people who knew me at church was different from how I showed up when I was in investment banking. I was like, that's just not how. I'm not trying to have three versions of me. I want to have
Right.
one version of me.
Right, right. Wow. So you said it started around 2019. So walk
Yeah.
me through that journey of transition and what that looks like.
Yeah. So in 2019, I had kind of just gotten off the ground this hair care startup with Jessica from
Yes,
business
yes. Tell me a
school.
little bit about that. Where's that going?
Yeah, so I am no longer working on that business,
Okay.
which is a part of the transition. Like we had
All
success
of
with our
it.
second launch to Cornell, and I realized we were at this like intersection and this point where we could double down and grow it, or I could pursue, getting back to Chicago, which was like always kind of on my heart. So that was like the first of many conversations and like tough conversations. So like having the conversation with Jessica to like, hey, this is great and I see where we're going, but if I'm going to double down in anything, like I need to go back to kind of some of my more original plans and like wanting to get back to Chicago. So that was very tough because it wasn't like we were failing, it was we were succeeding. But
Wow.
I knew if I were to continue with that, that would push me getting back to Chicago like even further down the line, years maybe even. So that happened in February, March of 2019. And then April in particular, I'll never forget, like there was this deal that we were working on, and I also had started serving more in the church and was celebrating a close friend's like birthday, Easter weekend, and like all of those things were basically happening at the same time. And I tried my best to like do it all at the sacrifice of just kind of sleep. So it's like, okay, well, I'll be at your party and then let me work on this deliverable for my boss from 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. is which literally what I
Oy.
did the
Oy.
Saturday before Easter Sunday. And then Sunday comes, I'm turning in an assignment, and like an hour before I'm getting ready to go to church, like my boss sends me a note with all of these comments, all these things that need to be changed, and I'm just like defeated almost. Or I felt kind of defeated in that moment, just like 'cause
Right.
I was trying so hard to kind of do it all, and still like it wasn't enough, and still I couldn't manage to be present in all the spaces that I wanted to be present in. So like
Mm.
in that moment, I remember like this is not it. Like I can't continue to do that. And that's when it's really started to kind of crystallize after that weekend of just I can't do this. So like I remember emailing him saying like, "Hey, I'm actually about to head to church, but I'll get to the work afterward, like after church." And
And in banking, that's like, oh no, no.
yeah, you kind of can't. Yeah, and making the expectation is that like when someone emails you, you're gonna get to
You're
it
doing the
immediately.
work.
There's like there is no like thing that would come in the way of you getting to it ASAP. So that was kind
Right.
of kind of pushed back and said like, "Hey, yeah, I
Wow.
actually."
Okay, so now that was sort of the first big steps to send that note to your manager. And the reason why this is so pivotal is you have to take such a deep internal look at yourself in order to make that decision. So, externally, when it comes to being conscious of what society will think or the folks that are around you, what culture will think, especially with you having have gotten a sweet seat in banking. How did you manage that and how did you sort of move through that?
Hmm. I think I'm hearing you saying like how am I managing like what other people might think about the situation and like me making the
Basically, or
transition.
the pressures of your own thinking of what culture would want expects of you, right?
Yeah, yeah. What I recall and like what I think really helped me in that season of transition was just getting like really intentional about the types of people I surrounded myself with. And like everyone, I had a really, really strong community in Atlanta. And I think, the job for bringing me to Atlanta to find those people
Oh,
who
wow.
had shared belief, and really were just like cheering me on.
Hmm.
So in that time of transitioning and knowing I was making the move from investment banking to something in the impact space and moving back to Chicago in particular, I was very intentional about who I shared that with. Like everyone didn't know those were the moves and things that were going on in my mind. So I didn't feel as though I really had to filter out what other people's like reception of me would be for making such a shift, because as you said, like banking is this kind of like coveted thing and super competitive, and it's like a great opportunity. In fact, my mom, who I'm very close with, like I didn't actually share with her that I was like quitting my job until like the very last moment. I think it was like a week before
Interesting.
I actually, and at this point, it wasn't, oh, I'm going to tell my boss I'm quitting my job. Like it was already in motion. So it was a matter of me just sharing, like, hey, actually, next Friday is my last day.
Oh,
So,
dang. Oh,
yeah.
that's so
So,
dope. So how would Brianna today define success?
um, authenticity is at the core of that, like feeling like you're doing something that you're designed to do, with minimal, like, faking the funk. Those are the things that really come to mind. Living fully, living on purpose. Um, Yeah, that's really kind of what I think about. So authenticity has really just been critical for me over the last like couple years in particular. That's when I feel like I'm most successful, when I feel like the way I'm showing up in one space doesn't like shift because of the people that are in the room. It's just, this is just who I am. This is
You're staying
who I'm designed to
consistent
be.
across
Yeah,
the board,
yeah,
and
across the
everything
board. Like
you're
that's
involved in, you're
critical.
showing up as you are. And
Yeah.
especially in today, being a black woman, being in corporate spaces, that really could be a measure of success, as in like, how are you showing up in this space? Because sometimes you're so programmed to think that it's better to show up a certain way, and that's what
Yes.
works, right? And it might work, but the reality is, how are you feeling inside? Are you literally dying
Yeah.
inside? And who is it
Yeah.
benefiting to be showing up as a different character of yourself?
Yeah, and I think it works to a certain extent, but even in that finance space, like the people that I saw really thriving, in particular the people of color, the black women that I saw that were really getting the promotions, they were authentically themselves.
Mm,
Like they were showing.
mm.
I was looking at some images from that season. I remember the day, like one black woman who I call a friend got promoted to be a director. Like she came and she was at the board table, and she was in her fuchsia suit with her natural hair, and I loved it, and it's a picture I still kind of reference. Like she wasn't, in my opinion, minimizing like her personality or
Who she
trying
is to
to
fit in that
conform really
mold.
at all. At
Wow.
all. She
So,
knows the deal, she knows the markets, but she's
right.
also a black woman who loves Beyonce and loves fashion
She
and is
loves
comfortable with her
it. Her
natural, like,
personality is
yeah,
beautiful. How do I bring that? So, interestingly, the path of success looks like you're going to have to figure out how to bring your authentic self to the table, like wherever
yeah,
you're moving through it. Wow. So, what would your advice
yeah.
be to someone sort of in that phase right now, struggling, figuring out how they navigate that, right? Whether it's the pressure of culture, pressure of family. I love how you told your mother literally like a few days in, like, yeah, I'm coming home, yo.
Yeah.
Versus like, all these different pressures and elements of it, from work, from home, and then you wanting to make sure that you are positioned to thrive, to succeed, to create impact. What is your advice to someone going through that right now?
Um, I would advise them to try to like double down, and spend more time in the places where they do feel like their most authentic selves. Because I believe that there are some areas, like there is a friend where you feel you're most confident, like there is a setting where you feel most yourself, and just spending more time there so that you can begin to articulate and like identify, like, oh, these are the elements of the culture that brings out the best in me. And then I think as you think
Mm.
about your career and making a transition, per se, then that's what you look for. That's what you identify. I remember the place I work for now. that kind of came up in my interview, that I was really looking for a place where I could be my authentic self. And I remember, like, even the way I dress, like wearing my hair in its natural form and wearing a pop of color was important to me, small things, but I knew I didn't want to, at the smallest detail, have to feel like I had to conform or try to put on a mask or minimize myself. So that's really what I would think about. Is just like, if you are unsure, just like stop and just kind of take an inventory about like where you are right now. Because I do believe there's some spaces where you feel like your most authentic self, and just try to take like inventory about like what are the elements of that, and then you go find that in the workspace culture or whatever you're pursuing to make a transition in.
You know what I admire about you through this journey as well? Sometimes our biggest battles are ourselves. And like, what did you say?
I said for sure, for sure. Yeah, that's the biggest
Accepting to
battle.
be like, I'm going to leave this behind and pursue this because it is more in alignment with these factors that are maybe connected more on a spiritual level, on an emotional level, and leaving that life behind. I think sometimes it really comes down to like our own internal talks. Did you experience that? And if so, how did you navigate that?
Yeah, yes, 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 all the time, probably still today. Like, did I make the right decision?
What's happening? Oh.
Like, am I? It's, yeah, for sure, because it was a journey, and I'm still like in that process of, stepping, I think, into greater purpose in my work. And again, like I kind of go back to community, you know what I mean? I think like having surrounded myself with people who saw um who saw purpose in me, who like believed in my purpose, like they were the ones who could anchor me whenever I was having that kind of negative talk, and just be like, Brie, like that's actually inaccurate. Let me bring you back. Um and reassure me that I'm doing a good job, I'm on the right path, and being able to kind of share them when I am feeling bold about making the transition. Like, hey, just in case a week from now I'm not feeling so bold about this, can you remind me? Can you take me back to this moment where it was very clear? So being in the right community for me helped to kind of minimize when I'm having those moments of self like negative talk and doubt.
How would you define your purpose?
Um, Man, that's a heavy hitter. I didn't know we were gonna go there. I think
I'll give you a little
I'm,
something, something.
I think I'm still finding the words to best articulate it, but I believe that at the core is about like loving people. And right now I'm in this process of like better understanding how to love myself, because I believe like the way we should be loving our neighbors is indicative of like how well we love ourselves. Like if I'm full, then I can go and pour out to you in abundance. And just in practice, how it looks right now, I'm in the youth development space, and I'm really enjoying that. Like it really feels like it's clicking. It's like, oh, like I have like natural talents and gifts for this work. And that's a cool thing. It's a first thing for me career wise, to just be kind of easily flowing in the work. So I have a lot of excitement around economic development, a lot of excitement around community development, and specifically in Chicago. So that for me feels like a draw. It feels like a calling. But I also believe when we use the word, and not to get too much into semantics, but like purpose, I believe I think you can have like many purposes, and like you can, depending on the setting you're in, like you can be the one who steps in and like fulfills that purpose. But for me, calling has for sure been connected to Chicago in a lot of ways, connected to community development in a lot of ways, and just like loving people well.
Yeah, and you're originally from Chicago, right? I think,
Yes,
yeah, when I
yes,
met you,
yeah.
that was wow. Wow. So, what does your vision look like? I mean, no one ever knows what tomorrow holds, and we are all, taking it a day at a time. When we pray, we ask for this vision. I've heard economic development. I've heard community. What is Brianna's vision?
Right now the vision is just like living fully each day and like being my authentic self. And getting to the place where um my life isn't so compartmentalized, in the sense it's just like, again, I keep coming, I think I've said it at least a few
Say
times
it again,
already,
sis.
but
Say it
it's just like,
again.
who I am at 9 a.m. on the Zoom meeting with the program team is the same as like who I am when I'm volunteering on Sunday and who I am when I'm having this conversation with you. There's just like a seamless nature to how I live my life. Like that really has been a focus for me and interest. And like that's how I envision my life. Like not being the person who's just kind of living for the weekends, but just like happy to be alive, like
That
happy to
part.
be all of that. You know what I
Yes, yes,
mean?
yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. I'm so grateful I got this chat with you. Is there anything that you would like to share, given sort of what it is that I'm building here and as I, keep defining the right path for this message, the vision, and all of that?
hmm So one thing that comes to mind when I was just trying to reflect about how did I get here to doing this work that feels really, really good from a place where it was like, oh, this is not quite me. Like, how did I make the transition? And one thing that stands out to me is just for me was a series of taking small but very decisive steps. So at first it was making the decision that I'm going to have the conversation with my manager to kind of push back and say, no, I need this space to practice my faith, and work has to come second. And after that, and then making the decision to quit my job, that was like a singular thing. There wasn't necessarily a decision to quit my job. And now I have A, B, C, D through Z steps already lined up. I didn't have that. And I realized that was really just that was the track and like that was the pathway all of last year and to this point. Small but decisive steps.
And it's that pull. Is that, and the interesting thing is, I truly believe we all know what our pull is deep down,
Yeah, for
right?
sure. Yeah, we do. I think so too.
And it's up to us to just be like, are we going to accept that, or are we going to continue on with this aspect that has maybe created a good life for us, or that has created a perception of whatever we deem a success at that moment? Yeah.
Are you going to lean into it? You know what I mean? Like if you
Hey.
feel it, like do you have faith enough to take like the small step? You might not have it all laid out, but do you have faith enough to take the small step? Is really what it comes down to. I think there's like so much power in that, or can be.
One thing I've been redefining our message here is I realize a lot of us emerging leaders, or leaders, as you may say, we have so much to give to our communities in terms of impact, in terms of business. I'm all about business mindset, right? Let's build something, create a foundation, but that's me, right? And so, but the challenge becomes I realize a lot of the folks that I speak to in corporate spaces, it's like, they can't, right? Either we become comfortable with what we're doing internally, but we know that there are so many challenges that's preventing us for us to be our true authentic self, whether they're the access to actually grow within our career, the challenges. And it's like, how do you navigate that? Because it's not like you can just up and quit, but you know that draw and that pull is getting you there. Do you have your take on that?
I think, yeah, just like for me, there was also a periods, seasons, years of, I think, building up disciplines before I actually made the jump. And I would, yeah, I have to speak to that as well. So like a part of me being able to quit my job, just practically speaking, I had done a lot of things financially to like put me in a place where I had some security there. And I had been carving out time in my schedule to kind of like explore what could be next well in advance of me making that decision. So I think, yeah, there's time for you to have disciplines and start creating practices before you make a significant shift.
So tell me a bit more about your community development investment now.
Yeah, so right now, I'm all into this organization I'm working with. It's based or headquartered in DC, but we have regions across a few
Oh, I'm
regions.
in
And
DC.
I didn't know that. We have to talk about that.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have to. I'm newer though, so maybe you know the spots. You gotta tell
DC is
me.
like one of my favorite cities outside of Chicago for sure. It's a great place. But I'm rounding out a year with the organization, a nonprofit, and I'm really just trying to be all into that, especially because I've made such a major transition in terms of industry. I really just want to be like the sponge and kind of soaking up like what does it mean to be in the community development space. So learning from these leaders who have been in it for decades is really kind of where I am right now. And just enjoying working directly with young people, with high school seniors who are really just like incredible, like dope in all ways that you can imagine. So we work with them to give them paid internships and professional development on a weekly basis. And then me specifically, I'm coaching them about what does it look like after high school. They're seniors and thinking through, are you going to the military? Are you going to college? Is it a gap year? What does that look like? And being their cheerleader.
Wow. Building businesses? Because, I got to slip that in there. But
Yes.
what did you say? No.
Yeah, no, for sure. Definitely starting businesses. Yes, that's like top of the
Man.
list.
Wow, this is good. This is really good. Brianna, thank you so much for taking time to chat with me. At the core of it, I hope that this message inspired someone to sort of take inventory of their life. We're young. We have deep desires to create change and create impact. And I love that you listen to that inner voice. I call it my God voice. And being able to sort of plot your way into a space that you believe you're well grounded and that's where you're supposed to be. So thank you so very much coming in, opening up and sharing your story.
Thank you for the space. This was fun. I'm so excited for what you're doing. Rozy Effect. I know we're just getting started.
Sis, we're just getting started. We're just getting started. So thank you oh so much and have a beautiful rest of your day, Brianna.
Welcome. Thank you. Take care.
All right, folks, did you enjoy the conversation? Let me know which part of our conversation that really stood out to you. Don't forget to join our growing community over at therozyeffect.com. That is TheRozyEffect.com. Because this season 2, we're unveiling it, taking back the curtains, looking at the core of decision making, looking at creating impact, living in your purpose, the opportunity that entrepreneurship presents when we look at tech innovation, and really delving deep with amazing leaders to discuss further. So I don't want you to miss out because I want to send you a note to get in on our growing community. Thank you so much for joining in on the conversation. Also, don't forget to join our social media followings over on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at The Rozy Effect. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining in on this conversation. And let me know your thoughts, what you truly enjoyed about the conversation, what you'd like to hear more of when we talk about living in your purpose, looking at entrepreneurship as a path on building a legacy and the opportunity that technology presents. Well, until next time, you already know it's your girl, Rozy Ponsa. Thank you so much for joining in today.